Hello, and welcome to Introduction to Bioinformatics Analysis, a course taught by Phillip, Richmond. This is Section 7, Interacting with the Queue. Again, quick start instructions, you should know how to do this by now. Use your WestGrid resources. So the queuing system is explained in great detail at this website here. It goes over a lot of the specifics that I'm just going to kind of gloss over now. And you need to make sure that you use all of these resources that are available to you when you get stuck or confused or you need some help. Remember that this WestGrid website has a lot of important information. So if you remember from the introductory slides, computing via servers. So the user will interact with their desktop, and that through the terminal will interact with the head node. Head node talks to the execution nodes. In a little bit more detail, you, the academic researcher, will log in to the terminal into WestGrid, and once you log into WestGrid, you will be on the login node. Your data is between your home directory and the Scratch directory, and the jobs are going to be run on the compute nodes. And so in order to go from the login node to the compute nodes, we interact through these batch scripts, or what I will call PBS scripts. A quick note is to not run big jobs on the head node. You have to remember that there are thousands of users using these login head nodes, and most of the compute is stored within these compute nodes. So if big, long, compute intensive jobs are running on the login nodes, then it will bog down the system and the system will crash, and then it won't even be able to make use of all of the extra compute. So do not run big, long jobs from the command line on the head node. Instead, you must wait in the queue. So I keep talking about this queue, and it's essentially a play nice, first come, first serve lineup for job scripts. So you create a job script with information about how to run the job, and then it is submitted to the queue, and when those resources that you request are available, then it will be executed by the compute nodes. Something to note is that when you submit a job, this whole play nice comes into effect when there are other... What's Canada Day tomorrow? Sorry. When there are when there are users that have been requesting thousands of CPUs, maybe every day, they will have a lower priority than you if you are new to the system and this is per se your first job. So there's a little bit of a priority system there, but in general it's mostly first come, first serve. So the earlier you can submit your script, the faster it will be able to be executed. However, for this class we won't need to wait, at least between the hours of 9:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. from Monday to Friday. Instead, when we submit jobs, they will be instantly delivered to the compute nodes. This is because we have a special reservation set up for this class by the generous people at WestGrid. So if we go over to our terminal, we can take a look at the current queue using the qstat command. So if we type qstat, lots and lots of things are printed to the screen. And so if we scroll all the way back up to the top, all of these are the jobs. So you can see that on this compute system, whoever Larsko is, this is the... We'll get to the header here. See, these are lots and lots of people, or just a few people submitting hundreds and hundreds of jobs. So when we get to the top, every job will have a job ID, so this is the number of the job. The job will have a job name. Usually people just call them whatever the process is running. The user who submitted the job the time, wall time that the job has been running, the status of the job, so you can see this one is running, these ones are queued, and then the queue that it is sitting in for Orca for Orcinus. So you can see this Larsko user really is dominating the queue today. And then there's Mirandel. So this is how you can look at the queue. But again, that's kind of a lot of different names to be printed out. If you just wanted to see, it looks like there aren't too many Leos. So we can do a qstat-u and then type in a username. And you can see now only that username will be printed out. So when we run our own jobs, if we do qstat-u and enter in our own username, then that's a way that we can see the jobs that we have submitted. So let's take a look at an example PBS script or job script. You can call these whatever you like. I like calling them .pbs. So if we go to our Wine Research Center directory, global scratch wrc. In here I have a PBS directory, and inside this PBS directory I've got a couple different example PBS scripts. This first one is just a header. So if we're going to go ahead and cat this to the screen. So you can see that the PBS header has these lines that start with a £, or a hashtag, and then PBS, followed by some option with some value. And so I'll go over a few of the required ones, but in general I find that it's easiest just to have a single default header, and then you can copy paste this header from script to script, and once you have a little bit more knowledge about the process itself, you can start to modify things like how many processors. So this is specifying, hey, PBS, so hashtag PBS means this is something that I want the scheduler to know about. You need to read this line, -L prox equals 1. This says I want to only use one processor. This next bit says I want to have 2,000 megabytes or 2 gigabytes of memory for this job. This says I want my job to run for a maximum of 15 minutes. So after 15 minutes of processing, the job will be killed. So this is something that you really have to pay attention to if you have jobs that might run for an hour or 2 hours, and this is set to 15 minutes, then you're only going to get 15 minutes into the job before it's dead. This is a nice little bit here. It says when the job begins, ends, or aborts, I want you to email me. And then you have to follow that with this line saying, this is my email address, so you can send it here. So obviously you would have to change this to be your email address at whatever.com, and this way when you submit a job you can then walk away from it, and when you get an email in, maybe it would be only an hour, maybe it would be the next day, it would let you know that the job has begun and ended. Or if something was wrong, it would tell you that the job had aborted. So these two lines are very important because they allow you to be very flexible. You can submit jobs and then you can walk away, and when there's action happening within the queue, when your turn is up, then you will know that that has happened. So here I just go through a few of these different options as well. So why don't we go ahead and make our own PBS script. So what we'll do is we will copy the example header.pbs into global scratch your own sandbox directory. So if I go to that sandbox directory, we can now edit this header, and we can scroll down. One of the things you see is that because this is a specific type of file, you will see a bit of different coloring here. So if I now want to add to this job something like make a directory, so we can do any command that you would enter into the command line is enterable within this space here. So in general, you want to just copy paste this bit from file to file and then add in your specifics to the command here. So we will just use a very simple, fast command. It's going to run very quickly, but we will call it make directory in global scratch wrc. And now if we save this, we can then submit it with the qsub command. So qsub, the way qsub works is you type qsub and then the name of the script. So this is called example header.pbs. And you can see that the job ID is printed here. So if I type qstat-u and my username, you can see that this job, which I have told requires 15 minutes, but in reality it'll be executed in a second. The status, I'm waiting in the queue. The job name, and the job ID. So let's say this is probably going to, because there's so many jobs waiting right now and I'm not within the hours of our reservation, this is going to not execute for a while. Let's say I wanted to delete this job ID. I could type qdel and then the job number. And now if I type qstat, there is no more job. So this is one way. Let's say you've submitted something and you just realize that there was a bug and you're still waiting in the queue. Instead of letting that job wait in the queue, you can delete it, remove it from the queue, and then resubmit it. So we could always resubmit our example header. Check it again, and there it is. Other things you can do, obviously you can modify the script to require more processors or more wall time, but again, when you ask for more processors, you'll have to wait longer for the job to run. And we'll get more into this different processor requests in week 2. So the last thing that we want to do is let's convert our mapping commands into a PBS script. So if you remember, within, let's go ahead and move this file into scripts. If you remember, we have this map and convert shell script. So if we look at this file, these are just commands, again, that if they were to be executed, we could type sh map and convert.sh and it would run perfectly fine. Instead, what we can do is we can concatenate our header and our shell script into a single, we'll call it map and convert.pbs. So now, if we edit this file, we can see first we specify all of these important things to let the scheduler know. And let's see, I want to delete this entire line. So we can go ahead and delete this. So now when I submit this to the queue, what will happen is, again, the same set of processes are going to be, or the same job specifics are going to be given, but instead of just making a directory, now it will go through and execute all of these things. So I can save this, and now I can submit it. And now I have this job being still waiting in the queue. Also, while we were waiting, you can see that our first job finished. So before, if you can see up here, this job, while it was running, we did not, or before, while it was queued, we did not have a PBS directory. But now we do. The other thing that happens when you run these jobs is that you will get a .e and a .o file. So we can look at these, and they're obviously going to be blank right now, but what happens is that these files will contain the standard error and the standard out from the jobs that you run. So again, these are not important now, a little bit more on that later, but remember every time you run a job, you're going to get these E and O out files. And they may contain important information for debugging. So if your program runs with an error that would spit to standard error, then you're going to see that here. But more on that later. That's all I have for today. We can see if the job ran. Oh, it looks like it did. So now we can go into process, and you can see I just made all of these from queue commands. Perfect. Alright, that's it for today. Goodbye.